Okay.
Welcome, everyone. We are at the appointed hour, so in respect of all of your time and those who might be viewing online, we will go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. A couple of comments that I'd like to open with. One, just want to clarify, following a letter that was in the paper a week or two ago. This committee has not made a recommendation that the county should better financing. There's been some discussion about it, but there's not been any recommendation. So contrary to some thoughts, that has not gone as a recommendation for this committee. So I just want to be clear on that. Doesn't mean it won't before we're done with our work. Don't know. That hasn't been decided at this point. But clearly it's not a recommendation at this time. The commission has been having some conversations as well. If you saw last week, especially with roads and bridges, and we know from our previous conversation with the state auditor staff that that is one of the drains on the general fund because of dollars being transferred from the general fund to help with the needs on the road and bridges side. And frankly, if we're going to close any gaps in the general fund, roads and bridges has to be part of the answer. I think we're all, at least in this room, aware of that. So I want to turn over to Chairman Marquardt to make some further comments on the road and bridges.
Yeah, so I've been doing a little studying on this, and I've actually got a copy of the resolution that Hutchinson County passed in 2021, I think it was when they passed it. And like I mentioned to Doug earlier today, I can't believe that previous commissions haven't taken a look at this in the past. And I really kicked myself in the butt for not looking at this a couple of years ago. But the South Dakota County Road and Bridge Levy is codified law 10-12-13, lets the County Board of Commissioners levy an annual property tax to pay for maintenance, repair, construction, and reconstruction of county roads and bridges, and to build a reserve fund for that purpose. That kind of shocked me that they said we do a reserve fund, but what the statute does, the levy is set by the county board, not automatically collected by a fixed rate statewide. Money is restricted to road and bridge purposes and related reserve funding. South Dakota Department of Revenue describes the levy as being outside the property tax limitations. So the maximum levy rates is if we have less than $1 billion in taxable taxable value, you can charge up to $1.20 per thousand. 1 billion to 2 billion is 90 cents per thousand, and more than 2 billion, 60 cents per thousand. How we would adopt this, it says the county board must pass a resolution by a 2/3 vote, which means 4/5, before July 15th. The resolution must be published within 10 days and at least twice in a legal newspaper. Voters can refer to the levy by petition. So the voters actually have an opportunity to refer after we put it in place. One important related rule, which municipalities would really like also, the money raised within the municipalities, within the city limits of Yankton, the property tax values there, Utica, Lesterville, Gayville, the municipalities get 25% of the sum that's collected from their municipality. So it's something I think that we should certainly going to take a look at in the meeting on the 30th. I think we're going to pass a resolution to do so that we get it. I think we'll see how the rest of the commissioners feel, but so that we get the 10 days notice and twice in the paper by the 15th of July. So some numbers that I come up with for these are estimates from 2025 or actuals from 2025. 26 numbers are not in yet, but in 2025, our total taxable value was $2,905,572,271.
So we're at the 60 cent per thousand.
So we're up to 60 cents per thousand. So in calculations, and then there's a utility taxable value that gets added to that, which was 71,783,878 for a total taxable value of $2.977 billion. So that comes out to 2,977,356 thousandths. That's 60 cents per thousand. A total sum of $1,786,413. Of that, municipalities would get 446 million, which would leave us $1,330,000. $446,000. Yes. Sorry. Which would leave us with $1,339,810, which had we done this, that would have paid for the Stone Church Bridge, the county's portion of the Stone Church Bridge. So like I said, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer that we should do it, but we'll see how it goes on the 30th.
So do you have to have the two meetings and publications before the
No,
first
after.
15?
After we do the resolution.
As long as you have it.
This isn't a hearing. So this is just a resolution that we can pass as commissioners, and then we have to notify the public 10 days. And then they have time to refer it to the ballot in November.
And we have to do it on the 30th to satisfy, because it has to be done before the 15th of July.
I didn't know if you had to advertise twice before the 15th,
No, not just for the
but
resolution.
just for the resolution.
That is what I've got for that, and I think that puts, takes one thing off of this committee board. Because I think this is something we talked about early on, and then,
Cause you've been moving as much as 3 million.
yeah,
General fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess one thing I would say is, at least from the finance side, if this were in place and you picked up the 1.339 million, that's not gonna happen tomorrow.
right.
Down the road, from the time you assess it, collect it, and so forth. We would encourage the commission to have the discipline to not just look at that as, okay, now we can go out and hire more people and do more things, because we just got 1.3 million. What you're really doing is you've got to have the discipline to extend that to the cash flow.
Absolutely, and that's where, these funds can only be used to improve bridges, build new bridges, roads and stuff. But what it'll save is taking funds out of the general fund. So like you said, it's very important that, there's a windfall here, so we're gonna, and it's kind of like what happened, I think, that a couple of years ago, we had all this COVID money coming, so it wasn't even something that we really looked at. We should have. Absolutely. Hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
But lessons learned, I guess.
There's weird things with that COVID funding too, where you had to spend it with the next amount of time too, and that's the worst thing about free money.
Pride is sponsoring an education tomorrow evening, that this will be one of the topics to try to get people, given the short compressed time frame.
I think the positive thing from our last meeting was that the public perception of this was not as bad as all the commissioners always said it would be. So
From those in attendance and
so those antennas, but even since that meeting, talking to people last weekend, a lot of people last weekend, and the perception is that it's not a bad idea. So
The only thing I'm gonna throw in, the next time I jump before you guys, I'm gonna ask you for a $7 clause. Put a 3-year time limit on it. That way you don't have that issue that the county commissioners get used to this money. And they've got to come back to the people again and say, okay, have we used it in the right place?
well, it's this money which is only can be used on roads and bridges.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I mean, I think in an ideal world, we can see that it would be nice to see us fund this with that tax, but then also, now that we don't have that being pulled out of our general funds, seeing our general fund budget maybe decrease and result in a tax that's elsewhere.
And I think that's kind
That
of.
would be a very ideal world.
And it's at 60 cents per thousand on all of the taxing classes, so it's ag, commercial and.
Every dollar collected from property tax is included in that.
Tax exempt organizations,
That has
not addressed.
And you did put those in your figures.
This is just.
That is
It's
our,
kind of big valuation.
that is our evaluation, taxable evaluation.
Yeah, we're not stuck with it.
John, any other questions on that topic? Okay. Move on to financial reporting.
Well, Catherine and I met with a couple of departments. Jolene's been off having a wonderful vacation, I hope. We hear about it. So we've been looking at numbers and just trying to understand some of the questions. I know, Catherine sent a list to Patty. Some of the things that we just weren't understanding where stuff gets posted, and I think we still have some questions there. We did have some good meetings. I know last time we talked about ambulance. I mean, we met with ambulance since the last time we met. And had a really good meeting with Jeff Brown. He's very, very sharp and gave us lots of information, so that was helpful. I sent some information to the sheriff. He's been here last week and this week, so we'll get together with him to maybe get some. So. Anything that you said? Anything else? Kind of the common things that we're hearing from the departments that we meet with are the need for capital planning. You know, they used to do that and they don't do that anymore. And so the concern of, like ambulance's concern was the expensive equipment that's starting to run the end of life. You know, emergency management, the same kinds of concerns. And then a confusion about, hiring policies, salary policies, and some of those things have changed. And so people are just not sure, you know, where they stand at this point.
And there's a great feeling, strong feeling that they need to see their revenues. They're only seeing their expenses.
I think the monthly reports they get are just the expenditures. And so obviously ambulance, emergency services, sheriff and jail, they get revenues. And they need to be able to see both sides of that to see where they stand.
Right, and that, I mean, there's perception that the money goes into the general fund and it doesn't hit their accounts anymore. And if there is some money that's getting reported there, then we need to reflect that. If, you know, like I found some CPR money, well, that belongs to the ambulance. So, you know, they felt like it's just getting reported in the general fund and
Or if they
It's lost
apply for
to
a
them.
grant and then maybe there's some expenses associated with that grant, how do they know the money came in and we spent this much, you know, did it all flow correctly?
yes,
So
so
they're, I feel like they're seeing the big picture.
there's a lot of important things that happen when managers see their revenues. So,
So does encoding, the software system that we use, does that, do they break that out?
There's a line item for income, the
So-
revenue, yes.
for some reason, only the expenses coming through.
I think it's just a reporting thing to department managers.
Yeah.
Because
it's
I know
more-
when we got the full report from Patty in March, I mean, I could see revenues for emergency management fund and then I could see expenses, but I don't know that I was getting the revenue piece of it.
But through what you're doing, that will draw in with import.
If we decide which line items on the revenue belong to which department,
Yeah.
that's
one of
the
the
code, that's the code.
clarifications we're asking.
Yeah, some coding.
Right, we just have to understand what belongs to where, and then once you code the reports, they should come in that way.
So like when you receive your funds on a grant that you applied for, do you see at least, does it come to you that you get to code it or?
He never knows it even arrives.
Sometimes I get information, I might get a call from over and say, hey, we got a check with a number. Did you have $3,500 grant? I mean, if I don't have the exact number, but the problem is, when the state sends a check to the state or to the county, it's everything for that month. So we may not see it. I'm not saying we're not getting it. My line item, like for a siren grant, you know, $100,000. At the end of the year, I'm in the hole because that line item on the grant never got zeroed out because I got it with income coming back in.
So,
I'm sure it's there, but we don't see that income.
so the state is sending an all-encompassing check to the county that has 7 different items in the chart of accounts lumped into one check, then we gotta go and disseminate out to make sure, is that as hard to do as it sounds?
No, there's probably a letter that comes along with it, because Paul's getting a question about, did you ask for $3,500? You know, they may see there's a
He
$3,500
could have asked for,
grant.
he could have asked for
Right.
3,500, and they only sent 2,000.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
So, and the other thing is, Paul never knows that he got
He
it.
got approved or what the amount is.
Right.
They're asking him to give that, and he doesn't have the information.
Well, and then not knowing that is also opening you up for,
Appropriation.
yeah.
Yeah, it's appropriated in audit because your funds different. So when these checks come in from the state, do they have some kind of line item listings with them?
We have,
We haven't seen it. We have that.
So if there isn't,
I
That's
just
a question.
yeah, so if there isn't, that's why we need to fix it state, but what I find it very hard to believe that they would send out a lump of cash and not have some kind of a.
Oh, there's got to
Since they're sending auditors out to go audit to make sure you've.
Having done business with the state, they have done that.
They'll make assumptions.
Yeah.
I think the county does the same things in towns and townships, so. Because my wife's the finance officer for Michigan Hill and Gayville, and she'll get a check from them, and she won't get the description for maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So she's got a deposit here that's sitting out there, and she doesn't know what
Then
it's
know
for.
that it's for.
So let's clean up our own
Okay.
house.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So,
Within the departments, do you feel like it's an expectation of each department head that they're having enough revenues coming in to cover their expenses?
Oh, no.
Okay,
Because they know the
Okay.
services, yeah.
but they would just like to see what revenues are coming in, so they have an idea year over year, quarter over quarter, how they're tracking, so you can see.
So,
the trend.
so for example, Paul's department, he has the potential of getting, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 to 50% of the salaries in the department covered by the state. Potential.
Right,
So the state might decide to send him 5% or 50% or nothing. But he doesn't even know that came in. And it may not arrive till next year. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Most of our checks don't come in on our LNPG until after the first year of the next year, so. That puts us again in the hole, but yet we're,
And he's got a pod grant that's for flu clinics.
right,
And I'm not seeing that at all. So whether they're getting that money and it's just going to another account. That's one of my questions, because I've not seen that money for at least 3-4 years. We haven't seen any of that money, but Paul really feels like that money comes in every year. So it's probably being put in another account.
It's already called Kevin and Kathy. Is there a line item that was grants?
Yeah,
And
there's
the income,
multiple.
or there
There was a 5 grand.
But there's no money.
So I just didn't know if they had a grant line that would show all the grants and then they don't get allocated to the departments. I just don't recall.
Why would you have a pot account now?
but I
Same
came
way.
in 2011, there were no line items for grants. And after the 2011 flood, I was like almost $200,000 in the hole because of the flood. So we went and asked, and they added those line items so that if I got a grant for a siren or a grant for a generator, it was separate from my day-to-day general account, because otherwise, I didn't know if I could buy a pencil after, so we separated that. It had to be Patty, I think Patty did that.
We just need some additional information.
Well, and additionally, no manager that we've talked to yet is budgeting the revenue. They don't have any input on the revenue. But I can tell you for sure, the ambulance director's gonna have some strong feelings about that.
Jail.
So, they should be given input in how to budget revenue.
Do they all get to keep all their revenue though? Or doesn't some of that revenue go?
Not necessarily, I mean, some of it's just in general fund, but you know, you need to know if you're obligating to spend some money that came in reimbursed. They need to see both sides of that.
Yes, I always thought that grant money especially was assigned to the grant that you applied for. I didn't realize that it's not.
And I know that for the sheriff, some of these are, they have to spend the money first
Right,
and then
and
they
then
get.
get-
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Where it gets really difficult.
That's why my line up at the end of last year, I had some negatives. Wasn't because I overspent, we had to buy the grant or use the grant money, and we that was the income ever came back, I don't know, I'm sure it did, like.
Or may have been posted to the general fund.
Yeah, exactly.
We just-
I think some of that gets washed over. It's like, oh, we'll just bring from the general fund over to balancing to zero at the end of the year.
Right, and that's
But
what,
it doesn't give us a good reflection of what that department did
The operation.
in the operation through the year.
I'll also tell you, for this committee's purpose, it doesn't help us in comparisons with other counties either.
Right.
Because the books are kept different.
Right.
Don't know if it's an apples to apples. comparison.
Well, and when I asked about COVID funds, I was told they all went in and out of the same fund. Well, if you put the revenue and the expense in the same account, it never happened. You know, you can't do that. You gotta record COVID revenue and COVID, you know, maybe the COVID expense was to buy equipment or something, which that's where it should go. But you still need to report, you don't throw it into a balance sheet account. Put money in and expenses in so that now you have no record of any of that happening.
You'd actually do the journal.
Yes, they need, the revenue and the expense needs to be reported.
There's a lot of them that do that.
Yeah,
We
we've-
amaze the only companies who
We've seen that. a
not
lot.
think about it.
And it seems right to them, but it's not a good way of, especially COVID, we've heard this almost every meeting,
So,
that COVID is impacting our income. But there's no way to track it, we don't know that.
so when the audit is done, are they doing like audited financials in the civilian world when they take a sample of the 10% of transactions to see how they're doing? Or do they actually do
For
an audit?
COVID money?
Or do they actually do an audit on the county to go look and see all the stuff?
I
that's
think
flowing?
what happens with COVID money is,
I wasn't talking just COVID money, I'm just
I
talking
think they're
county money in general.
aren't they doing more procedures and how that they're following
And they-
procedures and policies?
I looked at the audit reports and findings and stuff, they're out on the website about it. So they do it every 2 years and then it takes, you know, it's so old by the time you get it.
So it's stale information.
But yeah, but I mean, they do audit. And when I talked to the guy that came to our meeting, I forget his name.
Jeff,
Yeah. You know, he said, well, I'm not worried, I'm not worried the cash ties out. We know that, nothing's, they don't feel like anything's misappropriated, nothing wrong, but maybe some of the individual accounts are not coded, correctly. So that was some of the findings was they weren't posted to the right fund.
but I think we fixed that, some of the mispostings and that, because I think he goes through that and then tells her what.
Adjust it
Yeah,
before the-
yeah.
They finalized the report, but it's pretty open at times.
So at the end of the day, it falls on us to make sure we're doing correct journal entries and posting the right chart of accounts. Accounting 101.
Through recommendations, that's, our recommendation will be that they need to really start identifying income.
if we find out that's the case,
Mhm.
we don't really know.
For sure.
Yeah, some is this stuff we just can't see when you
Sure.
question
We have not seen detail on.
All we see, we don't see any transactions, all we're seeing is what,
the balance.
I don't know what you guys are seeing, trying to disseminate.
So does anybody ever go back and audit and look at the transactions?
Legislative audit should be, and that's what they should be doing, but I don't know much detail.
Well, Paul, you get a description of all your expenses on you,
Every month.
yeah, so each department head should be checking to make sure that. what they're-
We go through it to make sure that it was taken out of the right line item.
Right,
Yeah,
Sometimes,
so that's, you code your expenses.
yes.
and you,
So every time I send a bill over there, it's got 4226, 425, or, repairs, maintenance, professional services. I always write on that invoice what it should come out of. Sometimes, maybe they didn't read my writing right or whatever, but it went out of something else, and I call over and say, hey, Or maybe I interpreted that that's not really, I can't use it, that line, and they gotta take it out of another, one, but
Now, one question we have not asked, but it's something I see repeatedly in many organizations, is you budget $1,000 for travel, but you've used up all your travel, so you throw it in supplies because you got some extra money. But it's travel. You don't ever do that, do you?
no.
Okay.
That's why you'll see our travel line item, 6,000, I think $6,000 this year.
Yeah,
But it's because-
that applies to everything.
But,
You
right,
can't throw supplies
No.
and
And you should.
professional services.
we'd come to the commission if we had to and say, hey, we need to supplement travel because we're over. And, you know, or if we're getting close, we're gonna say, hey, I need to go to a couple more conferences or trainings. I need some extra money, and they're gonna tell me whether we can or can't.
So is that consistent across the department heads? Doing it like that?
We haven't asked.
Because if not, that throws a monkey wrench in the budgeting, because high school can budget, if you're
That's
running money out of supplies, you only show $1,000 of travel, we're not gonna increase it to 2,000 for the.
Right.
And we had last year, we cut the sheriff's travel budget.
Yeah.
Quite dramatically. Well, then it ended up, they had to fly out to someplace in California to retrieve a prisoner, which blew their travel budget all the heck. So, you know, then we had to make the adjustment, but I mean.
But you should, so you actually know where the money is.
Oh,
being
yeah,
spent.
yeah.
Yeah, and we don't know that that's happening.
Right. Unless
But
you know
it's-
that, it's kind of hard to make recommendations if you don't know. Verify it truly
Right.
actually correct.
And that's why they always worry about, well, let's hope we don't have a flood all of a sudden in the counties fronting a bunch of money and then it takes, what, 2-3 years before to get it back.
So you have to have reserves so that you can provide the seed money, you're gonna
Right.
cover that one, you're just managing cash flow.
One item you mentioned was capital plan. We're hearing that from multiple department heads that say, I know what I need in my department. But there's not a countywide plan to start to move those pieces around, so we don't have lots of big ticket items all end up at the same time.
And I am still starting to build you a capital budget.
So is it codified anywhere that required the commissioners to go through and ask for a capital planning budget?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not, I don't know where it would, you know, I don't know what the code would be if it was.
Well, if it's not internally, I would, potential recommendation would be is the commission
And
passes a policy requiring department heads in
Yeah.
coordination with the auditor and treasurer.
there is a percentage where we're supposed to make sure we keep in reserve to cover any capital expenditures. And that's what our reserve actually is
Sure.
for, but.
Talking reserve to actually cover from the cash flow standpoint. I'm talking from a budgeting standpoint. We're required to go through and the 2 readings and the timeline and all that, that the capital planning should just be codified and worked into that to say, yes, the commission has agreed, you need to do this. So it actually gets done.
Whether it's codified or not, it will be a recommendation.
Sure.
I feel
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, that's exactly what we're doing with IT tomorrow, is we are going to be looking at 5-year plan, how IT is going to
Exactly.
develop for the next 5 years.
And with as rapidly as technology changes, that's gonna be a budget that's gonna get expended and you're probably gonna replace all your laptops in 5 years anyway. Because that's what
That
the
is
technology-
recommendation, general
Right.
recommendations, you have to
Replace everything in 5
laptops in
years.
5 years.
Yeah.
That's generally what happens, is what you're forced to do.
That is one of the things that we're also looking at is an add-on software to enhance reporting with your existing software. Because Jolene has found something that's looks pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's other companies
Cost
out there,
much.
so it's something that maybe you should just kind of put down, reporting, because if you could pay, this guy was, what was it,
I
20?
think it was $3,000 to install it and 2,000 a year or something.
Yeah, but you wouldn't even have to hire somebody because it would be something that's dumped in from your software or from your accounting system into the software and it just does the reports. So you wouldn't even have to hire anybody to know how to do that. So I would try to put some money in there for
I,
financial.
I agree, I definitely am really interested in what tools we can implement to
Yeah.
really make our, reporting better and our understanding. of it.
But that's what you think we're doing.
If you plan to fully retire sometime.
Yeah.
I don't think they're on the payroll.
Oh, kolaches might maybe keep, you know,
Like,
kolaches. Yeah, puts you in.
Great discussions, keep moving down that path.
Yeah,
Um, if you have continued issues with getting the data that you need, then please let me know and we'll work with this. Issue to get the data we need in order to complete this work. Anything else on the financial reporting side? Questions?
We really need, like, with ambulance, I need a couple more months data because we're seeing some significant swings with the changes that Jeff has made. So it's not even feasible to give you, I think it might create more questions than.
Your sample size.
Like historical,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
historical averages are going to be very.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, we need
Well-
to see what he's done.
Maybe from the EMS side, because we do have an EMS task force that we decided on last time, and we have met and Jeff has shared, they've restructured staffing, transfers are up like 52%. Same time, so he's made some pretty significant changes and dropped that deficit from 400,000 to now below 200,000. But he's gonna get to a point where he's gonna plateau that, he's not gonna be able to eliminate that entire deficit, so. Don't know where that plateau is at yet, and I'm not sure he knows where that's at, because it's continued work in progress, but. So he'll continue to work on operations, with his team. We've had some discussions about ambulance district, there are some nuances there that need to be flushed out further before we're ready to bring that back here for, as a recommendation. And then are there any potential financial support either to the city of Yankton or from Vera? Those are the things that I discussed.
He is in the process of applying for a grant. And if he does get that grant, I think we need a department for that grant. Because it's
An educational grant, yeah.
that transport thing
Oh,
For-
okay.
for the
yeah,
vehicle.
there's a-
for the vehicle,
Yep, yep.
so that we can keep the revenues and the expenses intact for that grant and to see if it's worthwhile or not. I think the department would really clarify that.
Sure, they'll keep track of that. pretty close.
Anything else, the team?
I wasn't there, so I'm not.
Yeah, just overall that he's making very significant, I described it as lean manufacturing process improvements into personnel flow, I mean, all aspects. He's not leaving any stones unturned. I don't know that he can get to zero through efficiency, through improving efficiency.
Agreed.
It's just not, there's not enough reps and steps and transactions there to, we just don't have enough revenue, which is a good thing. We don't want more ambulance calls, but I mean, he can't get there. I mean, he can drive it pretty close, but it's just, there's gonna need to be help from somewhere else, or there's just gonna be a perpetual deficit.
And from what I understand, that's the situation for almost every ambulance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's, they never.
yeah.
they're out of
They-
service.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it's private, no matter who's running.
You can summarize it like this: you can't run a business off a Medicare reimbursement schedule.
Yeah.
Because it's basically a net cost model. At best.
so I think that's like he's working on a lot of developing systems for education and training and quality and so forth that.
Yep.
There are additional opportunities beyond the dollars and cents.
The capital planning for the future is a big one there, because you need to put a timeline, okay, how many years can you get out of ambulance? 8, 10, whatever it is. I mean, it needs to be done over like a forecasted, say, 20-year cycle of here's what it's gonna be, then break it down the cost per year, amortize that over 20 years, so that you can plan towards that, to start building the reserves and put in the budget every year to do that. so that the money's there when you need to buy an ambulance to, you know, to be able to go and do that, and that's gonna take some planning, and he's certainly up to being able to do that and understands holistically what the business needs to offer.
And if we go the district route, there are some specific things on capital planning that are part of that. So, but that's, we have some work to do before.
Yeah.
Questions? Okay. Policies and procedures, the task force met. We're looking at some things that we think, they're probably in the employee handbook right now, because that's really the only place for them to go. There aren't separate county policies. But there are some things that maybe would get tweaked more frequently than say an employment practice would, or an HR policy would. And so there may be some things that we want to look at removing from the handbook, so that you can review and adjust those easier than sending the entire handbook to be reviewed, and then sent back out to all of the leaders and employees of the county. So we're going through that process right now, and then we'll work with the state's attorney before we bring recommendations back here, because we don't want to develop a recommendation and have the state's attorney say, no, can't do that. So, early in the process, but that's where we're, that's what I had, Paul.
No, that's what we talked about the other day. Cause there's one thing like with the Minnehaha County stuff, there was nothing in there about budgeting in our handbook. I mean, they have kind of a breakdown of how to go about doing it, and maybe, I mean, most of us have been here long enough to know kind of how, but it gives somebody new coming in, this is how it's done. And that might be something that, will that be a policy or just in the general handbook? It's in their policy book.
It's in the policy side, because you might tweak that.
Right.
A little more often. You know, you get new software that does something that changes how you approach it. Well, then you don't have to go back and review the entire, because you changed something in the budget. Got a new person that would be, so sure, so that's kind of after looking at that. Yep.
Yeah, just reviewing the handbook and seeing some things that we can pull back. Put in the policy instead of.
Is there idea for consistency among departments that everybody operates under that same handbook and you don't have my department? does it?
Well, they do have one handbook now.
Right.
That covers everything.
Okay,
So we want to keep as many, I think the policy focus would be on those that would be county-wide policies for all departments, all employees, as opposed to us saying what Paul needs to do and the emergency preparedness, but the sheriff doesn't need to do, or vice versa. We're looking more at the broader kinds of things that might also help, like on the budgeting side, but also help with training and orientation of new people, which is going to continue to occur. At least then you have something that they could go to and say, okay, here's what I need to do to prepare my budget when the auditor sends me sheets.
Some of that can be moved more into a standard operating procedure, as opposed to having to be a handbook. And operating procedures can be, the department head can set those up and kind of dictate it without having the commission have to go in.
Yeah, unless it's impacting other departments.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's intra-department, sure.
So I think there's some opportunities there. Probably not gonna help necessarily on the financial side so much as it will on the process side. Continuity across all the departments.
But I think it would help eventually financial, just having people on the same page, you know.
Yes,
That part, you know, you say it's a hidden, it's a
yeah, you just can't.
below the line thing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Questions or comments?
Do you want to talk to you about, you know, full-time employee versus part-time, what's any of that, or is that?
Let's wait until we
Yeah.
get through that.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying, we don't, tend to protect the budgets, I mean. I'm not saying we have that now, but doesn't standard budget.
And peer comparison. Okay.
Not much. I mean, I sent that stuff to the sheriff for him to kind of look at and I haven't had a chance to move it. Nothing really new.
And I think from our discussions, we're really looking at how departments have changed over time with FTEs and expenses. I think what we're finding is we compare pretty well with the overall tax burden and looking at other counties our size in the state. We're finding it's challenging to compare departments just because of some of the things we've talked about today. We look okay, and in areas where maybe we don't look okay, there's explanations because, well, we record something different, or we have this program that county doesn't have. So there's not any real flashing lights that say this is a concern or a warning sign, but we do want to look at where we added FTEs at over time, and does that need to continue? Are there opportunities to roll any of that back? Overall expenses, so we just need to continue to work through those things. Might get to be more of an internal focus and review as opposed to the external piece. And Brian did a great job pulling a lot of that data together and presenting it to both of the task force and to the commission. But I think there's an opportunity for some more internal. And those of you on the commission, you probably know those things because you've lived them for the last few years. For the rest of us, we really haven't, at least don't know the detail. That whether that produces any more opportunities or not, don't know, but we probably need to take that.
I think the other thing is when the state hands something down, and I'll say the CARS thing, when they implement that the Department of Revenue, and that came down into the treasurer's office. You know, the education piece was not there. And so those are things, every time the legislature makes a change and puts it down to the counties, you have to somehow, in just your comment here about flex staff and all of that, that's where that comes into play because it's done in session and then it comes out and the state's not ready really for the education and then they, pardon my phrase, dump it on the county and then they're stuck out there. And that CARS is a big example of a little bit of chaos that came about in the departments on that. So, you know, that comes into play. That's out of their hands. It just comes down and
John or Ryan, anything else from the commission perspective that we're missing or we haven't looked at that you want us to look at?
Not at the moment, I might hear about tools and process and procedures, I think we need a lot of work in those areas.
Yeah. And I just think there's, you know, what we're doing here to streamline the budgeting process is what I'm excited about. Even though I'm not gonna be here next year, but I want to get through this year, beginning. But being able to streamline that, because that was one thing that I actually regretted when I was on the county commissioner's budget time. I mean, it's so.
We just started it, couldn't you? And, yeah, some of the commissioners didn't just get fired and get glossed over. And it's not good. It's like, yeah, our process is not good like that.
so is there any thought with the new auditor coming in? And I know Patty's gonna spend time and do the orientation, but is there something else to strengthen that individual that for the education and the preparation for that role to step in? Or is it just, I mean, it's a whole new world. And is there anything out there looking at or just some thought process about that other than the one-to-one? I don't know, I'm just asking the question.
This is, I think this is one of those things that's like, well, Patty's been there for a long time. This is our opportunity to implement some changes too as well. So that's where I'm like, if you have new tools and stuff like that, I would love to try to vet through those things and see how well they would fit for the new audit department.
Yes.
We can really introduce these things on the ground floor.
That's what I'm saying, that there's a process for that, how
Yeah.
to orient it, and as you said, what's up and ready and the timeframes and the expectations out there.
Is there a statewide auditors group? But I
Yeah,
know
there
that
is.
there's.
We have the 8 counties.
There is a statewide county officials group, so all the auditors at the conventions are together for all their training, and so you get to know every county's auditor basically, and can always call them, pick up the phone and call them. You can always pick up this to the state auditors and ask them questions, but unfortunately, they're kind of coming in cold and it's tough to gather all that information up front.
Does the state have a training program that they put new people through?
No, not for auditors.
No.
That's up to the county and the association. And again, every county's different, so what that auditor might do in Hutchinson County might be different for processes than that. There's not anything centralized out there. They've tried to do some things, but there's still this mentality as we're different.
Right, but I still think from a legal standpoint, there's certain parameters that they have to know, so I would have thought that the state auditor would have said, like, how you do this is one thing, these are the things that have to be
It doesn't
done.
work, I'm sorry, it doesn't work
No.
that way. It's up to that little group to do their education and connect with the state. That, I'm not saying it's right or wrong,
Right.
I'm just saying, that's just the way it's done, and until you have a different approach, and you don't, that's why I was asking, this is a great approach for the county, for a new person.
I do think we could take whatever we develop to the state auditor and say, here's how we want to operate and how we want to develop our policies and procedures and have the auditor lead these efforts and tell us what we're missing, tell us what isn't consistent with your approach when you come to audit. I think they'll tell us that.
Do you
There-
know, so we're gonna have a new state auditor?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing too, is there's a,
I go to Jeff.
there's a budgeting software that Lincoln County just bought, and she just kind of went through some of it at our meeting last week. And it's geared, it interfaces with Encode, and it's geared to present, kind of do what we want to do as far as Paul can see every line item that's in Encode to set up his budget. But for a new person walking into that office, I don't think it's perfect timing to implement that either. It's the time we
It
should,
could be,
but
because it's also, this new person's also a clean slate. So,
no, I get that.
the one fast thing about the two is like, what you're talking about, like, yeah, where's our experience when we're doing our peer comparisons? Is there an auditor office that works a lot like ours already in those peer comparisons? So if we have someone that maybe one county in particular, is probably the best to call on.
Right, and go on one that's using the software that we aspire
Yeah.
to use.
Right.
Yeah,
And then,
And Lincoln County uses the same software as we do.
yeah.
okay,
I don't, and I know,
Is that the only add-on they have, is just the budget program? But they didn't do financial reporting though.
so how does this,
I shouldn't say that they didn't. This is.
Because that would be great if you could do a budget and a financial reporting and go with Encode. That would be that's the,
Yeah.
so how does this transition actually work? Like January 2nd,
March,
oh, there is like an actual
Yeah, there is a.
overlap handoff.
yeah.
So it's not like,
She has
There
to
you
close
go.
out the
Adios.
years and get, you know, it's her job to close out the old year.
But to Nancy's question, I mean, the basic structures in state statute.
Yeah.
I
especially
mean, you
there's
gotta
a lot of
follow
things
some
that I-
things.
Yeah.
There's stuff out there, it's, you know, they have kind of a section. on it, the opposite, you know, like that's, so I'd say- so there's some stuff out there, but yeah, it's pretty general.
Depends on the auditor wants.
she mentioned, I mean, I don't know who's gonna get it. But she did mention she did a lot of research on the election stuff, you know, she was doing a lot of codified law. So, you know, just never know. It's all depending on her. The biggest thing is if she feels like she's drowning when she walks in that first day, that's gonna make it hard too.
so what options or tools do we have at our disposal to help give her a warm start when she comes in before day one? I'm just spitballing here. Is it even possible to bring her on as like temporary part-time employee or something to go through some training classes, get one? I don't know, I'm
Where
just,
do you start and stop it though?
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, just, well, I guess it would be up to us or some committee to figure out what that would be. Okay, here's the 3 weeks of orientation we'd like you to go through. Here's the stuff we'd like you to complete before this. we're gonna put you on payroll, pay you as part-time, whatever, during that process time, and then you start on January 2nd or whatever the actual date is. And again, I'm just hypothesizing here of how I would do this in a company, but not have walk in and just like get blasted with a fire hose.
But isn't that different because they're an elected official? They don't control by anyone what they.
Yeah, I don't know if there's even an option to do that.
It'd be nice if it would, but I don't, in our situation, I don't see it happening.
No, I mean, I think it's mostly it is that 3 month overlap. And
Okay. That is the period you're
Really?
going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or there's a lot of counties that have employees that aspire to take over as auditors, so.
Yeah,
Right.
but, and that's another thing too, is like it's an office, so there's, then our employees are still gonna be there. That
Sure.
are gonna know a lot of things.
Yeah, we're not losing on this.
Yeah, it's not gonna be completely brand new.
But as you said, if you have these tools set up, some kind of process to, you've got a clean slate.
Right.
What are the projects, what are the processes for the education to get this person up to speed? And I would agree, she talked about her knowledge of elections. It was not so much about the financial side of it, so that might be an opportunity
Right.
to use that clean slate, but just, you know, as you said, Patty's got, we've done it this way, and she's done an excellent job, and I'm not saying, but if we've got new opportunity to.
Right.
It may not be, she may not be the right person to.
Well, but as I'm talking about Patty, it's like she's great. She is set to retire and she really would not like to have to completely embark on a new thing. And that's like, I respect that. It's like, so, you know, I feel like, yeah, if we are, this is like this opportunity to, yeah, bring in new process and maybe new.
So in her first week, could she be sent out to Lincoln County to go sit there and shadow and learn from someone that's using this new system that Patty doesn't know anything
Yeah.
about? But again, we'd have to, I mean, we would need to, well, we as like the county commissioners would need to structure this out as to here's how we want this transition to.
Might
And there's
want to be
only
this-
so much we can do to structure it again, because she is also at her office using elected official.
Right.
So, you know, it's mostly, it's going to be about really being able to work with. Hunter.
So does the county commission then have the ability to supplement that budget? If you're wanting the new person to do additional training or purchase a new software or do something,
Yeah,
how
we
do you,
we do have control of the budget. So,
but you can supplement that without,
Yeah,
because I'm assuming Patty then will be setting the budget for next year, even
Yeah.
if she's not here. And if you're saying, well, we want to add these outside things into the budget,
that
Well,
would be
yeah,
part of
that's
the
gonna
budget
be
process that we.
plus some 20 guys for the new software, it's in
Yeah.
and it's purchased, and that's just the way it is.
And that's something we'll have to do this,
in this budget.
next month.
So,
And then keep in mind, we can only increase it by 3%.
the entire budget, not each.
Yeah, no, the entire budget,
Yeah.
yes.
So the other question is, the other people in that office, what do they do to support the auditor? You know, you're talking about data entry, you're talking, if you're changing that system, are those the people that are doing it versus the auditor? And the auditor really has the knowledge
It'd
base?
be the auditor to decide if there's somebody that's got the abilities to do those, that would be their job.
Yeah, no, I know that they've got it
So
on,
right now Cassie does tables.
and she's on maternity leave, so Patty's taken that over while she's
Okay.
gone.
Then Kim does payroll. And Alyssa just kind of does whatever needs to happen at Patty. It doesn't do.
Website and
Websites.
things.
We're saying a lot about things, yeah. She's gonna be more involved in the IT now too, so.
The functions and duties have to be looked at as part of the analysis, so that you've got the people that have the best skill
I
set.
don't know that we could do that for every position.
No, I'm just not, I guess I'm just talking for the auditor, because you've got a new one. That's-
and as the elected auditor, is it up to her to just decide how she's gonna do this? I mean, like, short of
Pretty much.
budget.
Pretty much.
You know, I mean, it's like
Yeah, so that's-
the military, the commander has control of the command, how he wants to do the command, all the way up.
this just seems like a key opportunity and
Yeah.
how best to get it to roll it out that everything is.
Don't know. Do they, will they know what they don't know?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so everything's gonna be new, whether it's a new system or the old
Is
system.
there a Democrat auditor ready?
So-
No. Okay, I didn't know if she was a shoe in or if.
So she is the auditor.
So she
Probably will be, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There's no one running.
Yep.
It's-
Happy to invite her to these
Yeah.
meetings going forward, they're public
Okay.
meetings.
They're public
so.
meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have mentioned it to her, that she should just come to these meetings.
Yeah.
In the last 4 minutes, for each of the task force, I'd like you to start formulating what you would like to have as recommendations to go to the commission out of your task force. We'll flow them through here before, for discussion and approval, before we take it officially to the county, but done that a little bit with the financial statements already. Keep that process going. I'd like when we're done, to have one document that says, here's what we need, the recommendations and financial reporting and policies and procedures, here comparison. Yeah, further drill downs in EMS or law enforcement or whatever it may be that have those. So we get done, you got one document at commission level and taxpayers, department heads, everybody's reading out the same pages.
Can we talk schedule before we depart?
So our next meeting will fall on July 7th.
So I won't be able to attend with the military duty in Japan. I will be. So not that you have to change the schedule just for me, but I just, and I won't be able to Skype it or anything.
Yeah.
That's not.
Commission
Same night as the
That'd be-
commission meeting, because we have an extra,
Okay.
right, between the commission.
So I'll push it back to 14. Let's pick a different day that week.
I would pick a different day, because I got eye surgery on the 14th. But that's. I don't know, that.
I think it's nice to stay in the same schedule, so we're always on, if you start adding, then we're gonna have, we're running into.
Yeah.
commission time.
Yeah. Want to be. Need to schedule on the 6th coming out of the holiday weekend.
Yeah,
That's the one Wednesday or Thursday.
How about either the 8th or 9th?
maybe.
8th is problematic.
Nice,
Sorry.
then.
The 9th, would work, Thursday the 9th. Now, the other task force,
They meet earlier at 11:30, so.
That was okay.
so if we stay with 4 o'clock, and meet on Thursday, July 9th, I'll send you. That would move our follow-up meeting. On the, sorry about that, 21st. Go back to our regular Tuesday. Location for that.
Well, I can't be there that night. I have another board meeting at 4 o'clock. I mean, I don't care, because.
We'll see where we're at. We may still not have anything really to report. It's still, they can see where it's at. but-
It's 9th.
9th and 21st.
21st.
Okay.
You all.
How we do
No, I can learn.
Oh,
No, it's something to do, some streams